Right then guys, it's PSL here for the 10th and final episode in the 1998 season in my Stewart Manager career mode on Grand Prix World. Last time out we had the Italian Grand Prix and it was a fantastic race for David Coulthard, but less so for McLaren in general because Mika Häkkinen retired from the race. So did Alexander Wurz. What that means is that the two drivers best placed to knock Michael Schumacher off of the top of the Drivers' Championship standings both retired. The drivers that actually finished the Grand Prix include Giancarlo Fisichella in second, Michael Schumacher, there he is, in third place, Heinz Frentzen finished in fourth, Ralf Schumacher, driving for Jordan, finished in fifth. A fantastic result for him, especially as he finished ahead of Jacques Villeneuve in a Williams, who finished in the final points place. So all of that means that in the Drivers' Championship, well, it's pretty much a given that Michael Schumacher is going to win the 1998 Drivers' Championship. Mika Häkkinen is 16 points back, Alexander Wurz is 18 points back, and everyone else is over 20 points behind Michael Schumacher, so all of those guys mathematically can't win the Drivers' Championship. Wurz mathematically can, so can Mika Häkkinen, but Michael Schumacher's form would need to absolutely tank for either Mika Häkkinen or Alexander Wurz to snatch the championship away from him. The 1998 Constructors' Championship battle is still much more open-ended. Williams, down in 4th place, are only 20 points behind Ferrari. A single team can score a maximum of 32 points in the remaining 2 rounds. So Williams, Benetton, McLaren and Ferrari are all in contention. McLaren only 8 points back. McLaren could still win the Constructors' Championship, especially if their pace from the Italian Grand Prix carries on. But all Ferrari need to rely on is Michael Schumacher, because as long as Michael Schumacher wins the 2 remaining Grand Prix, then there is literally nothing any of the other teams can do to stop Ferrari winning the championship. And also, that means there will be literally nothing that Luca Badoer has to do. So, really, Ferrari's Constructors' Championship hopes, realistically, are in the hands of Michael Schumacher. I do want to point out that after the Italian Grand Prix, motorsport fans picked myself as their least favourite manager. That's 2 races on the bounce in which I've won the worst F1 manager award, least effective after the Belgian Grand Prix and least favourite after the Italian Grand Prix. Fair enough though, because things are really derailing in the Stewart camp. We've had a morale crisis for some time, 1 out of 5 morale in the design, engineering and mechanic departments. It's been like that for as long as I can remember, but the commercial department was the exception because for a while the morale in the commercial department was 2 out of 5. Not anymore. The morale in the commercial department is now 1 out of 5. The effort is down to 60%. But to be fair to those guys, they do deserve a break. The commercial department has done amazingly well. I am going to sign a deal with Bossini to get another $600,000 next year, and what that means is that we have filled up every single sponsor slot, along with getting a decent engine deal and a tyre deal and a fuel deal. That is truly, truly exceptional. It's not just the commercial department I'm proud of, the design department I am proud of as well, because considering all the issues they've had, considering the fact our chief designer is only 2 out of 5 rated, considering the fact they only started off with 40 assistants, I got it up to 50, but then people keep resigning, which doesn't really help. Considering the fact morale has been chronically low in this department for as long as I can remember, they have done very well to nearly fully design this chassis. To be fair, I slightly messed up because I actually stopped designing this chassis before the Italian Grand Prix. So, well, I made a mistake because I thought for some reason, I don't know why I thought this, but momentarily I thought that I wouldn't be able to manufacture a new chassis before the Japanese Grand Prix when I absolutely can. So in actuality, we should have had slightly more progress done on the wind tunnel stage, but even still, I don't think we would have fully finished it. But yes, I mean, we have fully done the design stage, CFD stage, and the model design stage. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned this when I went through the chassis explanation in a previous episode, but the design stage is more important than the CFD stage, which is more important than the model design stage. Each successive stage is less important than the previous one. In terms of the overall chassis rating, so if we chose, for whatever reason, if we stopped the design stage early, so if we didn't fill up the progress bar, then that would have had a bigger detrimental impact on the chassis' overall rating than the wind tunnel stage. Because the wind tunnel stage, by not fully finishing the wind tunnel stage, the chassis, instead of being rated 40%, because of course we've got a 2 out of 5 rated chief designer, so the chassis would be 40%, but because we've stopped design early, it's probably going to be rated 38, 37, maybe even 36%. So what that means is that next season's chassis is going to be lower rated than this season's chassis. Even if the travel costs, even if the wages and the salaries, even if all of those things wouldn't have killed the team, manufacturing 2 cars would have done. But also it takes 81% of our staff, but we need to do it. So that's 1 car build for next year. We need to build a second one at least. Of course I will want to build 3, but the third one we can build at the start of next season, much like how I built a third car at the start of this season. The design stage, the manufacturing stage, this is where it gets really annoying, is towards the end of the season when you've got to manufacture cars and keep the 2 current cars going. And when you've got a small amount of staff and lowly skilled staff like we have, it makes it near impossible. I dread to think how you negotiate this when you're managing Tyrrell or Minardi, because it must just be a nightmare. However, I think the best thing to do in this situation is to fully repair the third car. Because repairing car number 1, we can't get the wear down as low as we can with car number 3, and car number 2 already has the lowest amount of wear, and of course we need 2 cars to be able to take part in the race. So we want to give car number 3 the lowest wear car to Barrichello. So Magnussen will still be in car number 2, Barrichello will be in car number 3, but both of our drivers will be entering the Luxembourg Grand Prix, the Grand Prix around the Nürburgring circuit, with wear on their cars. And without further ado, let's head on over to the Nürburgring for the 1998 Luxembourg Grand Prix. Right, I don't really want to dwell on the qualifying results, partly because we qualified in 15th and 16th. Jan Magnussen once again out-qualifying Rubens Barrichello, and ever since that brand new hard tyre came in, both of our drivers have been running that new tyre compound, so Magnussen, just in qualifying, seems to be at least as good as Barrichello, if not better. Because in previous Grand Prix we couldn't really compare our 2 drivers because Magnussen was always on the softs and Barrichello on the hards, but in the past 2 Grand Prix and this one and the next one, i.e. the last 4 Grand Prix in this season, both of our drivers are and will be running the new hard tyres, and Magnussen on an equal tyre compound is still beating Barrichello in qualifying. Has anyone? No. That is slightly surprising actually. No driver has been disqualified and every single driver qualified within 107% of the pole position time. Speaking of which, pole position was taken by Michael Schumacher, but Mika Hakkinen was only 62 thousandths of a second behind him. It's a Benetton 3-4, Benetton really gearing up for a Constructors' Championship charge. Then it's both Williams in 5th and 6th, and of course, even if Benetton don't win the Constructors' Championship or Williams, there is still the battle to be had between Benetton and Williams for 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, even potentially the battle between Benetton, Williams and McLaren for 2nd in the Championship. This is the first Grand Prix this season in which I am expecting at least one of our drivers to retire. Because let's not forget, both of our drivers are running with a significant amount of wear on the car. Really, I just hope both of our drivers finish this Grand Prix, and as long as both of our drivers make it to the end, then that's a success as far as I'm concerned. Let's see how this Grand Prix plays out. Well, oh well, that has shaken up the Drivers' Championship. Mika Hakkinen has won the 1998 Luxembourg Grand Prix around Nürburgring. That is a home race win for Mercedes. Luca Badoer in a Ferrari finished in 2nd. He finished 2nd in a Grand Prix previously, but he was disqualified on that occasion. Not this time around. Luca Badoer in 2nd place, 21 seconds behind Hakkinen. Fisichella in 3rd, Alexander Wurz in 4th, David Coulthard in 5th. Michael Schumacher, he took pole position, yet finished the Grand Prix down in 6th. Now this is why, in fact I never really completed my thought, but when I loaded up the qualifying results, I did say, or I started saying that I don't really want to dwell on the qualifying results, and I was going to say, because if there's anything I've learnt over the course of this season, that is that the qualifying results don't really have a great deal of reflection on the race results. Drivers can qualify well in qualifying and then finish low down in the race, such as Michael Schumacher. That's not a given, but it can, does, and has happened. It was Magnussen's engine that let go on him, and I don't know exactly what lap it went, but he was the first driver to retire, so reasonably early. In fact, if a driver was going to retire from a Grand Prix, I would want them to do it early on, because when you retire from a Grand Prix, you put damage on a car, but you still put wear on the car for the distance done. So if they're going to retire, I'd rather they retire early, because, of course, you still have to deal with the damage, but there's only a minimal amount of wear to repair. So Barrichello's done me proud by finishing, and Magnussen, yeah, he's retired, but firstly, it wasn't really his fault. Second, it was expected. And third, he retired early on, or at least the earliest of anyone in the Grand Prix. So that's helpful, if nothing else. Well, oh well, oh well. The Drivers' Championship battle is well and truly on. Michael Schumacher only scored 1 point. Mika Hakkinen scored 10 points. If that happens in the next Grand Prix, Mika Hakkinen will win the Drivers' Championship. That's all we need. These race results repeated. So it can definitely happen. Mika Hakkinen can definitely win the Drivers' Championship. But regardless of where Michael Schumacher finishes, Hakkinen needs to win. So Hakkinen needs to win. Michael Schumacher, assuming Hakkinen wins, Michael Schumacher just needs to finish, well, I would say 4th, but that would leave them tied on points, and I'm not sure on the race win count. So 4th, potentially 3rd, to be safe. So Hakkinen needs to win, and Michael Schumacher needs 3rd place at least, potentially 4th. This is what we all tuned in for, wasn't it? A Schumacher versus Hakkinen battle. And, well, it's really gone through phases, because Schumacher's start of the season was incredibly poor. Hakkinen's start was brilliant. But then, well, Hakkinen's season dipped. Last episode, it really wasn't all that great. But then this episode, a race win already. Michael Schumacher, only 1 point scored. Oh, the Constructors' Championship battle is definitely on. McLaren are only 3 points behind Ferrari. Effectively, when you're talking about a Constructors' Championship battle, that is basically equal. McLaren and Ferrari, what it really comes down to is which one does better in the race. In fact, actually, I guess this might be oversimplifying it, but really, what it comes down to is whether a Ferrari or a McLaren driver wins the Japanese Grand Prix. Williams are now mathematically out of the Constructors' Championship hunt, and also, it's incredibly unlikely that they'll beat Benetton this season, so Benetton are pretty much nailed on to be the highest finishing Mechachrome powered team. As far as we're concerned, we're not going to beat Arrows. That's a real shame that we're not going to beat Arrows, especially as Arrows have the worst engine on the grid. Normally, I don't show you when staff resign because it just happens all the time. When you've got a low staff morale, you just have to expect these sort of things, but 2 of our commercial department staff resigned, but worse than that, 2 of our excellent commercial staff resigned. Now, Barrichello all season has been the driver number 1 and Magnussen the driver number 2. So it means, I think this diagram means that if Barrichello is within 5 seconds of Magnussen, then Magnussen has to let Barrichello through. So, yeah, it's not something I'm especially comfortable with, especially as Magnussen, I think over the course of this season, has proved that he's not as bad as this game makes him out to be, or even as bad as his driver ratings. Because, well, this is the last Grand Prix in which we'll have Barrichello and Magnussen racing for us, so let's take a look at their abilities. As you can see, Barrichello, 3 on a lot of stats, 4 on concentration and experience. And this is in 1998. Barrichello was considered to have had a lot of experience in 1998. Magnussen, look at his stats, 1 and 2 on everything. I think in the races, Rubens Barrichello has almost always got one over on Jan Magnussen. But Jan Magnussen this season has done incredibly well. I'm proud of him, and I'm glad he's proved himself to be better than the game makes him out to be. So, Magnussen, you've certainly exceeded your driver rating. So, I'd like to give Magnussen unexpected driver of the season or underdog of the season, because when you look at these driver stats and they're awful, you'd expect him to be awful, but in actuality, that certainly hasn't been the case. Wirtz is higher up in the championship than Fisichella, and overall has done a bit better. I mean, Fisichella has done well this season. Both Benetton drivers have had their standout races, but for Wirtz to be higher up in the championship, and he's had to deal with the driver number 2 role. So that means, given the right circumstances, he's had to move out of the way for Fisichella. And even despite that, he's ahead of Fisichella in the Drivers' Championship. That really does say a lot about how well Wirtz has done this season. If I was to give Driver of the Season to any driver, it would be Wirtz. Definitely. Wirtz or Irvine. Ferrari, unsurprisingly, have a driver 1-2 structure. Michael Schumacher, an annual salary of $24 million. Luca Badoa, $80,000. $80,000. I said in the previous episode there must be a few $1,000,000 separating the salaries of Michael Schumacher and Badoa. But $24 million, that's ridiculous. Irvine's salary is $5.2 million, which is alright, but then it's still less than a quarter of the salary of Schumacher. But yes, anyway, Ferrari have a 1-2 structure. Jordan have a 1-2 structure with Damon Hill and Ralph Schumacher. This has caught my eye. Apparently, McLaren treats both of their drivers equally. Well, I guess I've been stopped in my tracks. Hakkinen has found a seat. Late in the season, Mika Hakkinen has been signed by a team. Prost are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Wow. Prost, next season, are going to have Mercedes engines, Rory Byrne, the best chief designer in the business, and Mika Hakkinen. I forgot to check the news after the Luxembourg Grand Prix, but we've already found out one new story ourselves, and that is that Mika Hakkinen will be moving to Prost next season. Truly unbelievable. There isn't anything on the second page, is there? No, I didn't think there was. Next year, Arrows will be getting its tyres from Goodyear. Minardi has signed a joint venture deal with Mobile Fuel for next season. Tyrrell has gone into a partnership with Peugeot. Now, I think that's quite good. Let me just double check. Of course, these are the engine ratings this season, and I think the engine ratings can fluctuate slightly. And also, this is the 4th model of Peugeot engine we're looking at, so it's not really a completely fair representation. Actually, hang on, are these the most up-to-date engines? These are the most up-to-date engines. Yeah, because that's the 6th model Ford one there. It's only because I'm looking at this, and, well, firstly, let me just say, Tyrrell, well done on getting a Peugeot engine, especially on the parts in the deal, because the Peugeot engine, yeah, sure, this is a upgraded version, but it does look quite good. Well balanced, pretty decently powerful, so it looks quite good. I just want to say, I think I now know the reason for Mercedes not Mercedes, but McLaren not winning a championship this season. Well, they could still do it. They certainly could still win the Constructors' Championship, but they have made life incredibly difficult for themselves. Look, this is the 4th model Ferrari engine, an FE spec, so this is one made by Ferrari. So Ferrari, plainly, have gone to the effort of improving the engine. Mercedes, assuming this is the most up-to-date engine, this is still the 1st model. An XX, a generic one. McLaren have a works deal. They have the R&D perk. They can improve the engine. But they haven't. And why not? Yes, they start off with the best engine, but if you're standing still, you're going backwards. It's still the most powerful engine on the grid, but they've got the money, the resources, the people to improve that engine. They could make that engine truly unbeatable. But they haven't. That explains why McLaren was so quick at the start of the season and less so towards the end of the season, because Ferrari, they've been improving their engine, while McLaren, yes, McLaren, they may have improved other areas of the car, but the engine, surely one of the most important components, they haven't touched. And neither have Mercedes, actually. Mercedes surely have the responsibility and certainly the potential to upgrade their own engine, but they haven't. Here we are at the end of the 1998 season, just before the Japanese Grand Prix, and Mercedes nor McLaren have upgraded their engine. An expert panel has named Nathan Quinn least effective manager in F1 3 races in a row. Who's the best? Ron Dennis. Okay, that's fair enough. This is an absolute disgrace. Least effective manager in Formula 1. Right, where is this? I mean, I don't understand how the manager rankings work in this game, but as we know, I won Manager of the Month for the Australian Grand Prix because, well, look at this, I got about 1.7 million points by the end of the Australian Grand Prix. No idea how. Since then, I've been scoring not a lot of points. Again, don't really know why. But I'm still the best manager this season, but apparently recently I'm just not doing especially well. So let's get started with the Japanese Grand Prix. We want to confirm the driver orders. Barrichello in his final race with the team as the driver number 1. Magnussen, I'm sorry mate, but you know, your final race with the team, you're going to be a driver number 2. But then again, he did sign that contract. No setup points because, well, we do have the money to go testing, but we're losing money at such a quick rate that it's just dangerous spending it. This is what I'm looking forward to next season, when we've got more sponsors and pay drivers. Drivers who are paying us instead of drivers that we're paying. And no new upgrades, so confirm the assembly. And there's no automatic gears on the Arrows car, so we'll try for power brakes this time around. And Without further ado, let's head on over to Japan for the final round of the 1998 Formula 1 season. Oh, okay, a light rain qualifying session, so we know what's going to happen here. Let me guess, Schumacher then Hill. Not quite, Schumacher then Häkkinen then Hill. Again, I don't really want to dwell on the qualifying result because qualifying doesn't often reflect on the... In fact, actually, whoa. Wow, okay, only 16 drivers will be starting this race. I just saw there, by Magnussen's picture, 107% rule, yes. Magnussen didn't qualify within the 107% time, so Jan Magnussen, in his final race with Stewart, won't even take part in the race. That's his final session with the team. What a sad way to end off his time with the team. Takaki also didn't qualify within the 107% rule, but... well, it doesn't really look good. I mean, let's not forget, we got Takaki next season, so I have been keeping an eye on Takaki, and that doesn't... he doesn't strike me with much confidence, but he did beat both Minardi drivers and his teammate, so that's something to his credit. And Jean Alesi banned after qualifying. Yet again, another midfield team. Well, I mean, the point is it's not one of the top 4 teams. It's another one of those not top 4 teams that somehow, for some reason, manufactured a driver aid. Schumacher, Häkkinen, Hill, Wirtz, Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher. If the race finishes just like the qualifying results, then both Michael Schumacher and Ferrari will be crowned champions in 1998. Well, that does change things. A dry race means suddenly Michael Schumacher isn't the firm favourite. Yes, he's still Michael Schumacher, he's still in the Ferrari, he's still in pole position, but Michael Schumacher is near unbeatable in the rain. In the dry, he is fallible. So, we'll see what happens. Again, Barrichello running with 31% wear. Magnussen would have been running with 30% wear had he qualified. This will determine the Drivers' and Constructors' Champion in 1998. So, let's see how the Japanese Grand Prix ends. Häkkinen! Häkkinen's won the 1998 Japanese Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher, he's not there. He must have retired. Michael Schumacher out with a gearbox issue. That means Mika Häkkinen has won the 1998 Japanese Grand Prix, and with it, the 1998 Drivers' Championship. Wow, oh wow, oh wow, where's Padoa down in 9th? I did say, didn't I say, that Ferrari's Constructors' Championship hopes basically relied on Schumacher. Padoa just doesn't have the speed. Padoa, yes, he got a 2nd place in the last Grand Prix, but... wow. And another 2nd place for Wirtz. McLaren, I am fairly certain, have taken the Constructors' Championship. They must have done. They've got 10 points. No, they got more than that. They got 13 points. David Coulthard finished in 4th, behind Ralf Schumacher. Mika Häkkinen won the 1998 Japanese Grand Prix. Alexander Wirtz in 2nd. Ralf Schumacher rounds off the podium places. David Coulthard finishes this season in 4th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 5th. And Damon Hill beat his former teammate to take the final points place. Barrichello retired. That's not really that surprising. You know, he entered with a fairly worn car, so that was basically a given. Wow, there you go. Mika Häkkinen, the 1998 Drivers' Champion. He beat Michael Schumacher by 3 points. What a topsy-turvy season. Häkkinen started the season on top and ended on top. But that middle, well, that middle was very strange. Schumacher had a lot of retirements and disqualifications. Häkkinen's season, well, his form really did waver. And then Schumacher came out strong. Once his reliability issues were fixed, he was just near unbeatable. But then, a car reliability issue letting down Michael Schumacher. But then again, Häkkinen won't be at McLaren to beat him next season. He'll be at Prost. And I think Prost will be competitive next season, but I don't think they'll be able to beat Ferrari. I really don't. So Schumacher, I think, will have a potentially easier ride to the Drivers' Championship. I don't see anyone who could beat him, but who knows? Absolutely anything could happen. Alexander Wurz, what a fantastic season he had, finishing in 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. Brilliant. Truly, truly brilliant. David Coulthard in 4th, Fisichella in 5th, Villeneuve and Frentzen. Those two Williams drivers incredibly equal. They're joint 6th in the Drivers' Championship. Eddie Irvine in 8th. In 8th, 25 points. I mean, that's really good considering he only did... I'm not sure how many races. He did about half the season. I'll see if I can check that out. But Irvine did about half the season and got 25 points. If you double that, he'd have 50 points. He'd be nearly in 3rd. Irvine, you know, brilliant job this season for the little time that he competed. Hopefully he'll be back next season. Damon Hill in 9th, Jean Alesi 10th, Luca Badoa with 11 points in 11th. To be fair, considering Luca Badoa was brought in as an emergency replacement, he did okay, you know? I mean, emergency replacement drivers tend not to do well. Think, for example, Luca Badoa in 2009, or Fisichella in 2009. Badoa, to score 11 points, yeah, that's far fewer than Irvine, but... Well, actually, no, because Luca Badoa, let's not forget, was plagued by a disqualification in the Grand Prix, which he finished 2nd. If he wasn't disqualified, he would have had 2 second-place finishes. Ralf Schumacher in 12th, Deniz, our future driver, in 13th, beating our current driver of Rubens Barrichello, and Mika Salo in 15th, and the final driver to score a point this season. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren won it. McLaren are the 1998 Constructors' Champions. Benetton still in 3rd, Williams still in 4th. No real change, to be honest, in the Constructors' Championship other than at the top. Arrows with 5 points, ourselves, Stewart with 3 points. Disappointing to be beaten by Arrows, but, you know, we've got a couple of advantages on Arrows, but Arrows have got quite a few advantages on us. And anyway, at least we scored 3 points. To be fair, actually, scoring points is genuinely an achievement. I wasn't certain that we would score points. You know, it wasn't a guarantee that we would score points. And we scored 3 of them, all courtesy of Barrichello. And then you've got Prost, Minardi and Tyrrell, who all scored no points over the course of this 16-race season. So that means Irvine did 7 rounds of the season, Luca Badoa did the other 9. Even still, I mean, Irvine to score 25 points in 7 races, less than half the season, that's really good going. Irvine definitely could have been a Drivers' Championship contender. He was before his injury. Anyway, let's check the news. Okay, right, Alain Prost has been voted Worst Manager of the Year and Ron Dennis Manager of the Year. What a season it's been. That was honestly a truly, truly exciting season. We end this season, I think, with technically more money than I started it off with, but also a massive loan hanging over our heads. But next season is, if nothing else, hopefully a season of prosperity. So let's get it started. So then guys, I'm going to end off this episode here and we'll start the 1999 season in the next episode. I hope you guys are looking forward to it, I certainly am, and I'll see you guys hopefully in the not too distant future when we start the 1999 season and we'll get an idea, finally, of how the pecking order will shape up. We've been getting a small idea over the course of this season because we've seen all of the signings all of the teams have made. Of course, you can see that in the description. If you look in the description of this video, you can see all the signings all of the teams have made. So, you know, be sure to leave the predictions in the comments. Which team do you guys reckon will be the team to beat next season? And anyway, yes, I'll see you guys in the next episode.